Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello friends, and welcome to another weekly wrap up where we're going to talk about I think I have 7 books that I got through in the last week. Also, the Mafia Romance Readathon is going on, but I mean, don't worry if you aren't interested in Mafia Romance. That will not be taking over this TBR just because I do have others that I have to get through. I have a big stack still of Patreon books from April that I have to get to, but I am squeezing in Mafia because this is the time, man. This is the time of year that I like to just go wild with it, and we're gonna. So, anyway, what we have to get through. We got some good books to get through today, including some highly anticipated reads and some rereads, and my re-falling in love with a couple characters too, which is great. So buckle up, grab your coffee, grab a snack, open up your Amazon list, and here we go. Or wherever you buy your books from. So the first book that I read is actually the one I can't talk about because I did finish The Wingman by Stephanie Archer, and this was the Patreon book for April. I did talk about this a tiny bit more on my monthly wrap up because it did end up in my top 5 favorites. So there's a bit of a tease if you'd like the, 20 minutes of me gushing and talking about all of it. It is available over on my Patreon right now. You can go and snag it there and dive right in, and I hope you enjoy my thoughts there if you're interested. But yeah, this was a friends to lovers. It's a hockey romance, and it does involve our heroine, Darcy, moving to a new city after breaking up with her boyfriend, and she moves in with her friend Hayden, who is friends with both of them but is really good friends with Darcy, and he has had a torch that he's been burning for her for a long time, and he now has his shot with her, but of course again she has just broken up with their friend, and so he has to be careful with it. But there was a lot I really liked about it. Obviously it was in my top 5, so there are free, there is a free trial available on my Patreon if you want to check it out. You'll get access to all my reviews there if you want to test it out. So, moving right along though, I did also really enjoy King of Envy, which just came out this last week, and it was also one that was in my top 5, so I just gushed about this in my video that came out yesterday. But I'll give you the quick once over. This is my Barnes & Noble copy that came in. I always pre-order the Barnes & Noble editions, but I was blessed with an ARC edition as well. I'm trying to decide how I feel about this green tinge. I think I like it because I like the snake action we got going on, and kind of the scales and everything. And then of course the gold foil. I mean, I'm obsessed with it. So anyway, this book is about Vuk Markovic, who is selectively mute, we'll say. He not only has some trauma, but he does have some injuries that make talking not that great. Plus he just likes being real broody. So he actually uses sign language. So you'll notice when you start this one out, if you read a physical copy, that they do have all of his signs bolded. And there is actually a reason in the story why our heroine, Ayana, why she knows sign language, but I won't get into all of that. This is called King of Envy because Ayana is actually engaged to Jordan, who is Vuk's best friend. Jordan also saved Vuk's life when they were back at university, and so he feels very loyal to him, and he has actually been made the best man for their wedding. Now, they've had a long engagement, and also Ayana thinks Vuk hates her, maybe because he's a bit of a grumpy pants and always seems grumpy around her, but we know that it's because he's actually obsessed with her and just wants to have her so badly, and he would never betray his friend, and so he has chosen to be very, he's already really silent and closed off, but he's chosen to really hide that side of him so that he isn't tempted by her. But pretty early on in this book, Ayana, she is a supermodel, and she needs to make a trip to do a shoot, and Vuk ends up well, he doesn't offer, Jordan asks him to fly her there, and he agrees to do that. And this is when they start spending a little bit of time alone. Now, what is also known to us right away is that this engagement between Jordan and Ayana is a fake engagement. It is a, they are doing it for their own reasons. And so this isn't known to anyone else but Jordan and Ayana. And so that adds this angst for Vuk, right? Because he thinks this is real and he is, tortured with wanting his best friend's girl. But we know that if he were to push a little bit and maybe be a little bit naughty, that there's real potential here, because Ayana, though she's marrying Jordan for reasons that will come out as we go, he could really be an answer to a lot of these problems as well. We just have to get them to be willing to talk about it. Then there's one final kind of like overarching thing that Vuk, he used to be a part of an organization that did some bad things. I don't want to spoil all those things, but he was a part of this organization. And though I would not call this like mafia or anything like that, it is a bit of a criminal situation. So here's the thing. It's like, I don't know how much I want to say. I talk about it in my monthly wrap up. So you can go there if you want my more detailed about that, we'll just say. Because I will keep this a little more spoiler free because it just came out. And this is a big book. This is like 400 plus pages. But anyway, let's just say someone from Vuk's past that is coming for him and thinks that he owes them something. And Vuk, though he is a very powerful, rich man, at this point, there are secrets in his past that some people know that could cause him problems. So let's just say that. We'll put that out there and everything. So anyway, the tension is immaculate in here. The slow build in this one, it may be my favorite version of a slow build of hers, because there is a real reason for them not to be together, at least what Vuk knows. And the more he's tempted by her and the more he likes her, and she starts turning to him for help because she feels that he understands her more than anyone else. And, Vuk is just like, well, then call off the wedding because I'm not going to do this to my friend. And she's like, yeah, I can't. And we're just like, but why? Anyway, so it is a bit frustrating. I think for some people it might be frustrating, but as you know Anaya and you realize why she's in this fake engagement and Jordan, why he needs this engagement to happen, I just really felt for them, And I also understand why, like, Vuk doesn't want to be the secret man and he doesn't want to be betraying his friend. So, like, there's all this going back and forth. So, anyway, I like this one a lot. I gave this one 5 stars. I did. And I personally, ranking now the 5 Kings of Sin that are out, I would still put this just a little behind King of Greed. King of Greed is just, I should reread that one. I really should. I want to listen to it sometime. I don't know when I'll have time, but King of Greed is still my favorite. And then I would put this one a bit above like King of Wrath and King of Pride. And then King of Sloth is still my least favorite. But it was still really good. And we do see a lot of cameos from previous characters, which is great in here. Love it. And we do find out who the next couple is, which, I mean, I'll tell you who they are, but I don't think you'll know them until you get into this. So I will say King of Gluttony is going to be next. And the next couple is going to be Sebastian and Maya, which I didn't know who they were until this anyway. So I don't feel like it's as big of a spoiler as was being made a deal of, but I also understand, like, Anna Huang's books have gotten huge, okay? Like, she's on billboards, she's all over. There's a song that is, like, based on this book now called King of Envy, which is just crazy. So, like, she's gotten huge. So I was so honored to get an art copy of this, and I wish I'd had time further ahead to read it, but I'm so glad I got to it. And I think the audiobook for this will be great. I know Jason Clark is doing Vuk's. And yeah, the chemistry between them was just so good. The slow burn was fantastic. And then there is some action at the end of this that just had me in its grip. So another win from Anna Huang, and definitely in my top reads of hers. And I feel good saying it because, loved King of Sloth. Like, I don't dislike a single book in this series, so I feel like a broken record. But when I look, like, back at them, it's easier to rank them and stuff. And, like, yeah, King of Sloth, like, Javier just isn't the type of hero that I like that much. So, but I liked Sloane. And again, you see Sloane and Javier in this one a lot, because Sloane is also kind of like the PR guru for Ayana, which was really cool. All right, then I finished, at the last moment, I'm so bad, I finished Reckoning by Gillian Eliza West. Now, I did get the chance to interview her on my Instagram. Now, the Instagram is what was requested by her, like, PR person, so that's why it wasn't a YouTube interview. I may at some point, I have never done it before, but I may try to, like, download that video and put it on here. But of course, then it would be on the, like, because it is in vertical. But it was a good interview with her, and I really enjoyed myself talking with her. But Reckoning is the follow-up to Ruin, which is called the Infernus duology, and so it's Ruin and Reckoning. And Ruin is a bit of a Hades and Persephone inspired retelling, but it also has some shades of, I guess she said, Egyptian mythology, which I'm not familiar with those, but that is what she says inspired her and everything. And I know particularly she was inspired by Hades Town. She talked about that in the interview, but really, I think the best thing to do is kind of talk about what the first book was, because anything I say about Reckoning is really like some big spoilers. So let me kind of remind you what like Ruin was about, and then I'll tell you what I liked and didn't like about Reckoning. So with Ruin, we have Aurelia, who has been raised in like this kingdom of life, or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called now, but I know Infernus is the place that Renwick is from. And she has this power that her touch is death. And so after a certain age of hers, anytime she touches someone with her bare hand, like they literally crumble to dust and die. And they live, like, there's this river that breaks up the two kingdoms, right? You've probably seen it. And on the other side is the kingdom of death. And we have Renwick, who is the king over there. And he sees people through their journeys to the ever after and all of that. So again, definitely like that Hades and Persephone thing. And in the beginning of Ruin, Aurelia has kind of this incident where her power kind of breaks free and she ends up killing someone, which A, it's very sad, the person who she kills, but B, she's terrified that this just happened, terrified of herself, scared of what the king, because she is the ward of the king, though she is like hundreds of years old as well, because they're immortal. She has been really like isolated and told not to like look into her power and just been kept like that. And so she runs away because she's scared when this like break happens, because she doesn't know what's going to happen to her and she doesn't understand what's happening to her body. So she's fearful of all this. And so she runs, and normally you wouldn't be able to make it across the barrier between life and death very easily, but she's just running and not paying attention. And it turns out that Renwick, he feels this like disturbance. And he feels who it is. And there's a specific reason why he's able to feel her. And not just because they're surprise fated mates. This is a fantasy romance. But he ends up helping on his side. So she's actually breaks through into the kingdom of death, the land of the dead. And, you know, she immediately then is very like sorry that this happened. And is like, oh my gosh, I need to go back. And he's like, nope, you can't go back. And also you shouldn't go back. And he goes about trying to explain to her who she really is and the lies that have been told to her. And of course, she doesn't want to hear them. She doesn't know this guy or trust this guy and like doesn't want any of that. But there's a lot she's going to have to learn from him. And in book one, that's what we see. And of course, they do end up falling in love. And then at the end of Ruin, something happens where I don't want to say, but she needs to go back to the kingdom of the living or whatever. And that is what was set up for us in Reckoning. Okay? So what I can say about Reckoning is that there are journeys that both Renwick and Aurelia need to go on. And a lot of said journeys are not together, the journeys that they go on. And there is something super shocking that happens very early on. And I didn't know how I felt about that. And you know, Gillian Eliza's telling the story that she wants to tell, and boy, she tells it well, I will say that. but also it's not the type of story that I care for, let's just say. It is a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey of women coming into their power. And it's a journey, too, of Ren finding a bit more inner peace and finding a bit of forgiveness for himself. So again, it's good things that she's exploring, and it's done very powerful. But I'm a simple gal, and I wanted more of the romance in this one. Now, I know we're supposed to have got that from the second one, but that doesn't mean that all the romance should be missing from book 2 just because they found it in book 1. And though in our discussion, we did talk a bit about how, like, for her, she doesn't feel like it's her job to show people's blissfully happy at the end. They do have an HEA, like, yes, they do. But she kind of ends it a bit abruptly. And she does talk about in her interview why she does that. And again, very valid. That is her story she's telling. But there was just not quite the same magic I got from the first one because of the journey she chooses to tell. Now, again, they may be very powerful for certain people. The themes, the journeys that she's showing are incredibly moving. I just found myself, I wanted more of Ren and Aurelia working on these things together, and that's not quite how it was. It was Aurelia going on a journey of self-discovery, but I'm like, but she already found her partner. And again, there's so many layers to that. Like, I'm not trying to put her in a box. I'm just telling you that for me, I would have enjoyed if we were going on that journey, like, not after they'd already fallen in love. Like, I wish they'd been maybe going on that, and I don't know, maybe if they weren't so sure of their matehood at the end of book 1, like, that they loved each other, but they didn't know that it could work yet, that there would have still been some of that to work on in this book. But, like, no, they are mates. They're together at the end of book 1. And then all this stuff that happens, I just felt very disconnected from their love. And when I'm reading romantasy, to me, the love has to be just as important. And while the love is technically important because them being mates is important to what happens, I didn't feel that their love was the part that was as important. Okay? So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. And there isn't much spice to speak of at all, really. I'll say it's like a 2, which is fine. And then, yeah, there is some trigger warnings for, like, gore and violence and things like that. And, yeah. I think, too, one final thing. I think, too, that if I had read this duology, like, back-to-back, it maybe would feel more satisfying to me because I was waiting many months for this, very excited for it, I waited a long time. And then to have it just, like, feel the way this one felt, it felt like a tad of a letdown. And that's just the truth. Can't hide from it. So, okay. Then I had a reread of The Death Adder by Naomi Lucas. This I was annotating for one of my patrons. Gotta love it. And this is book 4 in the Naga Brides. And this one is about Zalix, his name is hard to say, the Death Adder, and Celeste. And what's cool is Celeste is a, like, soldier in the beginning of this. And I think she's like 36 or something too. And they're on this planet. They're with a new group who've arrived. So if you're reading your way through this series, like, there was this initial group of, like, women and men who were on this planet. And of course, everything went to shit. And the Nagas got a bunch of the women. And, you know, just a lot of crazy stuff happened. And then Celeste is with another group that has come down to kind of investigate what's happening. They have a little more info about who the Nagas are now. And that there's this mating thing that's going on. And so the women need to be really careful. But Celeste still comes across Zalix, and he is a broken one, and he's a very dark one. He has lots of scars, and he actually, like, has done a lot of killing of other Nagas who have gone too crazy and things like that, which is nice to see. But like typical with a lot of them, we have Celeste and Zalix meet, and there's the pheromones, and there's the mating urge. And the thing is she's not planning to stay on this planet. She was just there for a mission, and she's going to go home. And so this one leads me to some, like, weird feelings about it, remembering, because we're now at this point in the series, which I'm remembering, where it's like, you know, the stories aren't exactly just repeating themselves, and the author's finding other ways to have there be a fated mate situation. But the threat that you're just going to leave, like, I don't like it at all. Like, it's realistic for the story. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong, but, like, I am not that interested in the threat of, like, losing them the way it's done in here. I don't know. That probably doesn't make sense. I don't know. But yeah, it was good. This one also has a lot of backstory that gets filled in. And I think for me, I'm just getting a bit fatigued with these. As in, like, I don't really care about all the sciencey stuff. And that is a problem for me with science fiction romance. And I know, shocker, I get bored with the science. And I'm sure some authors are like very excited to share about it and like dive into it. But for me, I'm kind of just like, yeah, I don't care about that. I just want them to be mating and finding a way to make their two very different peoples work together. But these are still fun to visit. I love the Nagas. I love all their mating urges. And I am very excited to reread Boomslang, which I'll be rereading this month, because that Naga, I remember being like the sweetest, precious baby. So I am excited to continue. I think it's just, I remember this now too, of like books 3 and 4 in the series were a bit of a like, I couldn't really tell where the author is going with the series. But with Boomslang, I'm excited to get back into that. And I actually haven't read past Boomslang, but Copperhead, as well as, there's another one as well that's out, which I just forgot. I bet I could look. What's the other one? There's Boomslang, Cottonmouth, and Copperhead. Okay, Copperhead is now. Yeah, Copperhead is coming. So I'm excited for those ones. Okay, next up, I did finish one Mafia book so far. I'm almost done with another. Like, I almost stayed up to finish it, but that'll be in next week's wrap up. But I did read The Devil from Moscow by Sonia Gray. This was one I've had on my TBR for a really long time, actually, and I saved it for the Mafia Readathon because it has an audiobook. And for me, the Mafia Readathon, I'm going to need to use a lot of audiobooks to get through it. So this is one I was excited for. But this is about, well, I'll tell you first. This is narrated by Lily Drake and Michael Gallagher. This is brought for romance, obviously, with the Moscow. And it involves Vasily, who has just come to, are they in New York? I don't remember where they are, but I know they've come from Moscow. They're in the United States now and getting kind of set up in a territory over there. And Vasily is the oldest of 3 brothers. And again, he's just trying to get a feel for his territory, get things set up and get things rolling, as it were. And then we have Nina, who is a college student. I think she's like 20, 21. She's not super old, but I don't think she's like 18. She's a bit older than that. But she literally gets picked up from school by her parents. And her dad tells her that he has a debt to some people and she needs to work to pay it off for him. And there's a lounge that she's going to be working at to pay things back. So her family makes it seem like, you're just going to do this. And she's like, no, I'm going to school. And they're like, we can't afford your school anymore. You can't go. You have to do this for us because otherwise they're going to come for us. So basically, the daughter gets given. But it isn't some lounge. It isn't some work program she's put in. They sold her into sex slavery to cover their debt. So there's this awful woman named, is it Ruby who's the awful woman? I don't know, but it's the madam of this place. And the thing is this brothel, which is really, you know, there's a lot of women being forced to be there, who've been kidnapped or their passports taken or whatever. And Nina is just given to them. And she isn't just being asked to work a lounge and wear skimpy clothes. Like, no, she's going to be forced into sex slavery. And so in the beginning of this book, you do see her assaulted. I won't say it's not graphic because like it's on the page, but the author doesn't like sit you in it and like keep you there. It's like very briefly we move on, but this author does show it. So there's your trigger warning. It is on page. You basically can skip like the first chapter of Nina's if you don't want to read that part and get into hers after if you want to. Like, I would say that because then you get the point and they don't show any more assaults after that. But the author does show that like this happened to her, right? So then we have Vasily showing up at this place. Now, a couple other things to put down. This brothel is in a neutral territory. So all of the criminals around there, like they all frequent it. And so no one attacks it and they're basically allowed to do what they want. Now, Vasily is there because there is someone who's stolen from him who ran into this territory and is literally hiding in this brothel because it's neutral territory. They think they can get away. Now, he's from Moscow, and the devil from Moscow, as you know, and he's not going to let someone get away. He's like, I don't care if you ran into neutral territory. No, we're not playing that game. You're not going to get one over on the new boss here or anything. So he barges in there, and he ends up running across Nina, who has like escaped from her room. Now, she's been there, we know this, for 10 days, and already just imagine what's happened to her in that amount of time. We don't want to dwell on it, but she has asked every person that she's come across to help her, and they've all said no, or they can't, or are men who are gleefully taking advantage of her being there. And then we have Vasily, who sees this woman and is like, you don't want to be here? And she's like, no, I've been forced. And he's like, okay, I'm taking you. And Nina, just as the absolute Ruby is an absolutely infuriating bitch who's like, you can't just take her. This is neutral territory. You're going to start a war. And he's like, then fucking come for me. She's going to be my wife. And the lady's like, okay, whatever. But he takes her, and he does get her to marry him. Because he's like, this is the only way, because if I make you my wife, then you're fully protected and they can't have any excuse. And so she agrees, because honestly, she's escaped, but like, where's she going to go? He's like, they will track you down. You know, they're going to find you. If I let you just wander on your own, like, they're going to find you right away. And then you're right back there again. And so, and she can't go home because her parents, again, infuriating fucks that they are, would just be like, oh, well, you still have to pay off your debt for us. Like, they would take her right back there too, because they're psychopaths, okay? They're crazy. So he brings her to his home, he marries her, and he tells her, he's like, you're perfectly safe here. There's nothing expected from you. And when things have cooled down, we'll get a divorce and like, you'll be okay. But wait, there's one other thing you have to do first. And this is the last part I'll start. He's like, you have to have my tattoo, because everyone who has my protection has my tattoo. And so she has to get, which if you see the cover of this, there's this bear tattoo on his chest. She doesn't have to get that. She gets a smaller version on her wrist. And when on her arm, I think it's here or here. I don't remember where they put it, but she gets the tattoo. And when she has went to bed and is sleeping, he has his man on his bear tattoo sign her name, like put her name like within his like bear tattoo, even though he's just married this girl that night. So anyway, so that's the setup of this, and I have to say, based on this setup, very strong book, really. And I will say, overall, I enjoyed this. Okay, now again, I have had this one recommended quite a few times to me. This was on like new to me mafia authors I wanted to try, like I was ready for it. But I did also have people tell me that they thought that the trauma was gotten over to way too quickly and that it was just too fast, and they're not wrong. However, this was a 240 page book. It was not very long. They do jump to love very quickly, but I don't know, I'm mixed on it because she is afraid of him for a while. I just think the issue is that they make the timeline of the book too tight. Like, I think if they had made it say that it was taking like 6 months to a year, it would have worked, because they do have like at first of just he does lots of soft things to win her over before, and then slowly her sexual desire for him builds, and she's like, I'm still too scared. And he's like, it's okay, there's literally no rush. Like, I'm not kicking you out. I was never expecting anything from it. So he says all the right things. So like, I'm torn on it because, yes, if we look at the amount of days that the book says it takes for them to go from he has her to when they first make love, yes, it feels too fast. However, there are lots of scenes that happen where she's talking through things with him and where he is helping build her up to it, and where he's letting her get comfortable with his body, and so it's like the author does put in the scenes that show the steps. It's just when you look at the timeline, you're like, okay, you said this has taken 3 weeks, and that feels too fast, right? So anyway, I don't think the people were wrong who said that, but I also think based on the length of the book and all of that, like, I think it was still paced well. So yeah, I'll put that out there. And again, I say this about so many books, but This one did give me Neva Altai vibes for that. Specifically the one, it reminded me of Fractured Souls. And if you've read that, you'll know. Like, there was lots of Fractured Souls, which also begins with a girl who'd been forced into it, escaping, and he, like, almost hits her with his car and then rescues her. And that is, like, there's some similarities with that, I think. So, I ended up giving it 4 stars. Because, again, those things didn't bother me enough. The audiobook was good. It was a quick read. The audiobook's only 7 hours. The read was pretty quick. It does have a bit of a breathing kink once they get that going on. But yes, the trigger warnings are real. But what I do want to reiterate is that if you skip, like, the chapter where the assault happens, which I think is Nina's, like, 1st or 2nd chapter. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly. If you skip that, honestly, the rest of the book is, like, ooey gooey sweetness almost. Like, he is a prince to her. Okay, this gangsta is a prince to her. So if, you know, those trigger warnings I said of, like, on-page assault, parental neglect, abuse, slavery, like, if you don't want to see that on a page, if you skip the chapter where that happens, there's, like, none of it in the rest of the book. So yeah. Anyway, that's my warning. I need to move along here. But I gave it 4 stars, and it was a good way to start the readathon. It hit quite a few prompts on my board, and I'm having a great time with it. The one I'm reading right now that I almost finished, which I will, because after I film this, I need to go get some groceries before I come back and get this video ready. I'm reading My Dark Fairy Tale, and I only have an hour of the audiobook left, so I'll have that one done. Okay, then my other reread to talk about is The Many Sins of Lord Cameron, which I always like to say, like, this is the book I've read the least in the series. And it's not because it wasn't good. And also rereading this was a great time. So it's not because it wasn't good. It just gets a little forgotten to me, which is sad because, you know, Ian Mackenzie, 6-star read, one of my favorites of all time. I've read it ad nauseum amount of times. And then book 2, I've read 5 or 6 times. I love Lady Isabella and Mac. And the Duke's Perfect Wife, which comes next, I've read that one 3 times, and I will be reading that one again really soon, actually. And that is Heart and Eleanor, and I just love them. But this one gets forgotten a bit, but this one is Cam, and he's actually the one he's Daniel's dad, and he had a horrible, I think his wife is dead, but his first wife was just horrible. And then we have Ainsley, she's a widow. Her name is Ainsley Douglas, and she's actually a handmaid to Queen Victoria. She's one of her, like, inner circle. And the time period that this one's taking place in is 1882, so it's an elderly Victoria. And Ainsley is sent on a mission for the Queen to retrieve some letters from Mr. Brown, which I won't go into all the history, but if you know who Mr. Brown is and, like, what the suspicion is around him and all those things. But there were some letters that the Queen had, and they were stolen to be used as blackmail to humiliate the Queen, and Ainsley is supposed to try to get them. Now, the woman who took them hid them in her paramour's room, which happened to be Cam. Because Cam, ever since his bad first marriage, he doesn't want anything to do, which, when you get into his story, like a lot of the Mackenzies, you understand why he would never trust women, and I don't blame him, but he likes to fuck them, so he has lots of paramours. But Ainsley and him actually run into each other, and she doesn't want to tell him what she needs, but they're kind of playing this dance back and forth. Now, he's had his eye on her since 6 years ago when he ran into her. But back then, her husband was still alive, John Douglas, and he was a wonderful husband. You'll find out more about their marriage when you read this, but it wasn't the most passionate of things, but he was still a very good husband. And so even though at the time, Cam really tempted her a lot, she was not going to betray her vows. She loved her husband, even if it wasn't in sexual nature. So anyway, but these two, as Cam discovers what her issue is and that he wants to help her with it, he falls for her, she falls for him. It's a whole thing. It's great. And you get to see all of the Mackenzies at their best. And there was still some absolutely swoony moments with this guy in here. He is just, it's so good. And there are issues that he has that Ainsley helps him with. It was just heartwarming. So I loved revisiting that one. Such a good time for sure. yeah, that one's 5 stars for me, for sure. Okay, and then the last one here, I was also lucky enough to get an arc of Taming the Heart by Elliot Rose, which I didn't finish until yesterday. This came out on the 29th, as well as 2 of the other books that I talked about in this one. They just all came out the same day. I still have one more. Well, I have all the arcs done now for April, but anyway, this one was book 3 in the Crimson Rose series. Or not the Crimson Rose, the Crimson Ridge. And this one is about Sage, who is like a social media person, and she gets hired to work for this ranch. And so it's a black cat heroine, but she's also really like perky and fun. She's 25, he's 41. He's a former pro bull rider. He's pierced, and she's found her new favorite toy. I'm reading off of the back of the postcard here. He's married. We'll get into more about that. And then, yeah, there's lots of toys. There's lots of fun stuff. There's let's just do it one time and all that. So technically this whole book is a cheating book. Okay, it is. But as an author likes to do, they like to make the wife as horrible as possible so that we're cool with it. And in this case, I was cool with it because this woman is blackmailing him into staying married. We'll just put that out there. He's married to this country music star. He was an ex-bull rider. They've been married for a while, but very quick into the marriage, she was cheating on him, treating him horribly, but they didn't sign a prenup, I believe is what it is. And so if she were to leave him, she could try, this is her threat anyway, she could try to take half of the land that he has, which is where he has the ranch. That is his like livelihood. And so basically she's forcing him to stay married to her while she cheats and gallivants all over the place. But he's supposed to look like the tried and true cowboy, or she'll try to take everything from it. Okay, so those are what the stakes are supposed to be. So he's kept himself pretty celibate and lonely because he doesn't want to mess around with this. And he's actually fine like being alone. So his sister and him like basically run this ranch, but they're trying to kind of get it to be even bigger than it is. And so Sage gets hired to do kind of like social media. And so she moves there to do that. And she also is willing to take the job because she is friends with the heroine from book 1. Yes, I believe this is the best friend from book 1. And so she's also willing to be on like Crimson Ridge because she's not far away from her friend who is married to Colt now, right? So she's willing to be there, and very quickly there's a super hot attraction between these two. And when she finds out he's married, she's like, oh, I don't want to do that. He explains the situation, and she's like, okay, but still, you're married, and I don't want to do that, but we're super hot, so we'll just have a one-night fling. It's fine. And so we have that, but once, of course, you pop the cork, they just can't stop it. Lots of sexy times. These are erotic cowboy romance, by the way, so just be prepared for that. Now, where the issues came for me with this one did have to do with the wife. Now, I was fine with them making her a baddie. I was fine with the reasonings of why we hate her, but it turned into a mustache twirling bitch type of situation. And like, it also was kind of that I understand why the heroine was feeling insecure at times, because this woman is trying to portray that it's a happy marriage. And Sage is like, well, is he just playing me for a fool? Am I just believing him that he says he's going to leave her? When it's like, bitch, you see how miserable this man is with this woman. He's not playing you for a fool. Like, it was so frustrating. And so the third act conflict is completely like, you saw it coming. But this author does what she's done in the previous 2 books, which is the type of time jump that she has, which she did for both of them previously, just randomly like 1 year later. So it's kind of that thing of like where you want there to be a conflict where they have to split up, but you don't want to go through the details of it. Like, it was just straight up a pick up and leave, and then a year later everything's gonna be fixed because the lady has to let me out of the marriage now. Like, why did we do that? Sage just ran out on him. I didn't like it. It pissed me off, honestly. I'm saying it, okay? I'm saying it. Now, I did not completely shred this because their stuff together, it was really cute. But to me, this back and forth felt pretty toxic, which it's okay. It's like, this isn't like dark romance, but like it kind of gets put in that category because it's erotic. So it's fine for something to be toxic. You're messing around with a married man, even if it's a marriage he hates. Like, I get it. But this was another case of like, this book was so long. And then to throw in that like break at the end, I just don't like, especially because she's done it in every book, right? It's that type of thing where, like, in the first book, I understood the break, right? And even in the second book, I understood it. In this one, I was like, no, we didn't need this. And it just made me mad after. So, but this is one too where I'm not supposed to say who the fourth couple is, but I will say this about it. I guessed that this guy would have a romance from the first book, okay? Because a certain character in book 1 behaves badly, but his character is kind of rehabilitated at the end of the book. If you know, you know who I mean. And I said, when I read that book, I was like, he's going to get a book. That's the only reason that type of character, instead of him getting kicked out of everyone's life, he was rehabilitated, which is fine. Like, I love stories like that, but it was a tell. And so this is one of those cases where, like, when we get the arc, they're like, please don't tell anybody who the couple is. And I'm like, do you think people are stupid? Because I guessed it from book 1. And the fact that person hasn't had a romance yet, I knew it. So I know I'm getting a little saucy. But I just think it's funny because both this book and this book, authors are being so secretive about who their next books are about. And I'm like, but you're doing interconnected standalone series. Like, we're able to guess who they are. You know what I mean? Like, we're able to guess who they are. So I don't know. I'm very excited for that one. I'm just kind of like, okay. And I think it's because they're planning kind of this dramatic reveal of who it is. When I'm like, I've known this person was getting a book since book 1. But anyway, I'm still not going to say it because I was gifted a beautiful arc. And I'm not going to disrespect that by saying it. But if you read book 1, you'll know who it is. So anyway, I ended up at rounding up to a 4 since it was an arc. This is a 4.5 on the spice scale. We have breeding kink. We have sex toys. There's a cock ring. That's a big part of this, which is great. I would say, like, she's not completely like a dom with him because he still gets bossy, but they definitely will switch sometimes where she's like, you can just watch. Like, you just watch. I'm going to do something. And he gets really hot when she does that sometimes. So there were some good moments with that. But anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Like I said, I need to go get some groceries and get things set away. But I hope you had a great week. Let me know what you're reading, how everything's going. Make sure you like this video. Leave me a flower emoji down below if you made this all the way to the end. If you're interested in any of these books that I talked about, I'll have links to them down below. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.